I honestly...
A lot of people feel now that he's president, they have a right over minorities.
But I do think in a lot of ways, the black community in the Western Hemisphere has it worse than anyone else.
We try on this show, this is one of the reasons why we created this show, is because, again, speaking of narrative, right? We wanted our voices to be heard. There's a lot of misconception that's out there, from Black Hawk Down to Captain Phillips to shows that are on CBC right now. Shoot the Messenger, we just did a review on that as well. We want our voices to be heard. And because there's constantly those headlines, constantly terrorists, this, that, we started doing something called Somali Excellence, So Somali Excellence highlights people that are doing really well in our community, that are contributing back to our community. And again, showing, look, there's positivity out there as well, not just the gangbanger that's dying out in Edmonton or whatever the case may be, right? Speaking about that, how does it feel to live, we're experiencing a lot of different issues now that Trump is in the picture. As an American, are you starting to see, and as a minority, are you starting to see those effects on you?
I honestly can't believe how bad the news is every day.
Yeah.
I feel like, did I sign up for just terrible news of the day? And is this like an algorithm sending me just terrible Trump news?
Yeah.
But I go look on the New York Times and they can't help but every news, it has to be this, because every appointment he's making is unconscionable.
Yeah.
There's no attempt at recognizing the country is split right now. Mm-hmm. There is no attempt at bringing the country together and bridging chasms. He just wants to steamroll everybody. And he's of such a minority opinion.
Right.
I don't think Republicans, the majority of them, are agreeing with what he's doing.
Yeah.
Democrats definitely aren't. Undecideds and independent voters totally don't feel this.
Yeah.
He is just steamrolling everyone with a very radical opinion and a group of people who don't care about anybody but themselves.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Iman, have you starting to notice that there's a lot of effects on Somalis because of Trump, now that we're living in a Trump world, especially in communities that are in America, like we talked about Minnesota or Ohio?
I personally noticed, maybe just not Somalis, but I just noticed the rise in hate crimes of people now that he is elected. A lot of people are pretty much going around saying things that they wouldn't have said when Obama was president. Even when Bush was president, a lot of people feel now that he's president, they have a right over minorities. This is my country. We are Americans. I've seen videos of minorities being spit on. I've seen people being called nigger. I've seen people being told to go home when they're third generation Americans.
The KKK was seen outside the day after Trump won, walking across a bridge in North Carolina. I remember seeing the
probably
video.
celebrating.
Just celebrating.
So I feel like a lot of people, what he said, he can't do majority of what he said. If anyone actually crunched numbers, he can't do a lot of what he said, right?
What he inspires
but
is scary, right?
when you have, and I'm not trying to call Americans dumb, but a majority of people who voted for Trump were undereducated, working low-wage jobs that had an outlet of blaming minorities for, being the hard workers, educated people that they are, right? So this guy's taking my job, he's taking my neighborhood, he's taking my home, this minority. So now what's going to happen is, now that Trump is president, it's who's really going to see the benefits. I think it's going to be the 1%ers, the corporately already rich people.
Sure, yeah.
And then you have he's saying, I'm going to get companies not to, take business out. He can't tell those companies that you can't leave.
No one,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't tell your friends to take their, keep your business in America.
No.
So I think a lot of it's going to shamble over the next 2 years. A lot of people who voted him aren't going to see what they thought they were going to see. And it's just going to be a total shit show. And I also think there's going to be a lot of hate crime. I think there's going to be a lot of, minority versus the white. Not even minority versus the white. I think it's minority versus the ignorant, if I can even say that, right?
Yeah.
People who look for an outlet of people to blame, right?
Well, a lot of black people voted Trump too,
How many? But the majority didn't. Who voted Trump? White women voted majority for Trump.
I feel like that vote was very emotional.
Minority women voted for Hillary, right? So
one thing you identified too that is super interesting and also heartbreaking is during the election, so many Republicans attacked Hillary for her ties to big corporations, big donors, the banks. I criticized her for it too, but I voted for Hillary still. Yeah. But what you see with the appointments, Donald Trump is even more in bed with these corporations and the big banks than Hillary was.
Yeah.
And the people he's appointing are even closer to them. And it's just I don't understand how anybody voted for him. Like, I understand why, and I understand why they were looking for an alternative.
Yeah.
But on a rational basis, there's no rational logic that checks out to vote for this man.
To think about it, I don't think Trump is really like smart intellectually. So it's not like he can go and talk about policy and world issues. So what he does is he goes somewhere and says, "What's the biggest issue? What's the biggest problem?
Yeah.
Oh, Somalis? They're the biggest problems. Let's rally around that hate." So what he does is he rallies around hate. So wherever he's going, if he's going to LA, if he's going to Texas, let's rally about immigration because that's the problem here, right?
Yeah.
So he's not going to sit there and talk about policies and issues around the world because he's not educated on it. What is he educated on? Fueling hate.
Yeah.
So if there was an issue in, let's say, South Carolina with Koreans, you best believe he's gonna go in there and be like,
and talk
fuck
about
the
that.
Koreans. They did this, that, and the third. You know what I mean?
Call them out as
a lot
well.
of people understand is Trump is clothes are made in China, so he's pro America. Bring our business back home. You produce your clothing in China, like majority of all other companies.
Yeah.
Do people know that? Because a lot of them are just ignorant ass rednecks who don't actually do the research.
Yeah.
He's foreclosed on businesses. He's built Trump Towers where he's contracted out to small businesses who bid and then canceled them and left them bankrupt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So no one really does their research on how he does his business, right? Because they're so we need someone to blame. Let's blame the immigrants, let's blame this. So he works off hate and blame and he just takes that anger and he just points it that way. And a lot of people wanted an anti-politician, right? So they're tired of the politicians that were being recycled over and over again, right? Hillary and Ted and Jeb. So they thought, okay, well, here's a guy who's never been in politics, period. He's gonna save us because he's a regular Joe. This guy shits on a gold toilet. He's not a regular Joe. You know what I mean?
This is what I mean is I agree with so much of what you're saying, but like if we call them rednecks too, do you know what I mean? It's just like I feel like it's not gonna help. It's gonna incite them more because these white people that voted for Trump, like you said, not very educated, rural communities, they're the white people that white people have left behind. And they're the white people that white people call rednecks. And I feel like you push any group of people, even if they do have the privilege of white skin, they have been pushed away. They have been left behind. And if you continue to push them more, they're going to fight back with all that they have, which is their skin, their entitlement, their privilege, and the idea that this country belongs to them. And that's what they did. It's all they had left.
The civil rights movement would not have started or even been accomplished if you were calling them rednecks, this and that. What did Martin Luther King do? He just walked. He made them look bad.
What did Malcolm X do?
Image, right? You know what I mean?
There's two, right? There's the Martin Luther King protest, the Malcolm X. But eventually you get to that point where you're just fed up. You're just really fed up.
I think you're totally
I'm
entitled
Tupac
to
in
be
this
fed up.
film.
Yeah, I think all your feelings is legitimate because like we've been pushed for so long. Somalis, you guys have been pushed even more than me as an Asian American has been pushed. And like I always fight against this idea of a model minority. Everyone has a different struggle, but I do think in a lot of ways the black community in the Western Hemisphere has it worse than anyone else. And like I don't think that is a bad thing to say or recognize. And I feel that people of all races in this world need to have solidarity and recognize why do we continue to beat this community down? Why do we continue to just present all the wrong messages about it and in a lot of ways leave it behind? And so I have no problem in saying I think the most oppressed community in the Western Hemisphere or the world is the black community.
Okay, so moving along from Trump, it's so depressing to even talk about it. And sometimes when I say Trump is president, it's a bit of a shock for me. Like I have to almost catch myself and be like, no,
I
he's
also
still
am
running.
still holding hope that something's gonna happen, but I don't think it will.
An impeachable offense.
Yeah, but I don't think there's a silver bullet that's going to save us. I think each one of us has to do the work.
I think he'll quit.
We're gonna have to eat it, man.
So I think he'll quit halfway and be like, you know what, this is worth it. You guys are all trash. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. Then he's just gonna be like, well, I'm back to work. I make way more money being in the
Yo, you really got his hand gestures and his face.
I make way more money on the Trump Towers than I do taking care of you, poverty.
So as an Asian American, so I wanted to bring back the conversation to struggles, right?